guys, welcome to DM Prep with DM Steve. I am the aforementioned DM Steve here to give you a peek behind the curtain at what it takes to be a dungeon master. Not entirely true, just kind of tooting my own horn a little bit. But essentially what I do here on DM Prep is show you some of the work I put into my planning for my campaign. I do a lot of stuff between campaigns. It takes a lot of work when you're not running a published module. It's a different sort of work than when you're actually pulling it out of your own imagination and presumably of a lot of other sources that are out there, which I've definitely lifted some from. But we are here. It is been 2 weeks since my last session, so I did my DM Prep 2 weeks ago. For tonight, for last week I didn't do one, and so we're back tonight. The interesting thing is that for a campaign that's called Beyond Avernus, my players have yet to go beyond Avernus. They're still in Avernus, so they opted to... basically, I put 3 quest hooks in front of them and said, hey, you can go to Bel and work with him, or you can go to like Arkan the Cruel and Tiamat and work with them, or you can go to Mordenkainen and work with him. I even made Mordenkainen kind of come off like a little bit of a pompous jerk, which of course he is, but I really wanted him to come across like that, and I wasn't expecting my players to necessarily latch on to that like daddy vibe, but apparently they wanted to be like talked down to, so that's what they did. So he chastised them for getting involved in the Blood War, and in order to balance things, because they took a major piece off of the devil side, he suggested that if they were going to get involved, they might as well, get involved and take a piece off the other side. So my players said that they would go beat Yinogu. Again, they defeated him once in a flashback scene. And as a reward, then Mordenkainen will reward them with a tuning fork tuned to the material plane and one tuned to Avernus so they can go back and forth. And that way they could, leave, do a bunch of preparations. I think their plan is currently to go back to Candlekeep, do some research, trade in their magical items, get a well-deserved breather before coming back. So they've yet to get to Stygia, which is good because, we hadn't fully fleshed it out yet. So let's talk about where I think it's going to go. So in our next session, they just beat Inogu. They're about to have a little greeting with Asmodeus, who's going to reward them for, taking out a demon lord. Like, he didn't even have to do it himself. It's like they're doing his work for him, and they're not even under contract. So he is going to reward him with some custom items. I made a custom bow for Hallandar, presumably for Hallandar. I mean, technically, he could go to anyone. Asmodeus is going to give it to Hallandar, and it's a magic item that's unnamed, and I'm going to let the player name his own kind of bow. But the idea is that I took a lot of the shot features from the Arcane Archer and put it into the bow, which has 9 charges, because, hell, 9 layers, 9's a really big number in this sort of like Avernus space or Bator space. So just adjust this a bit. It's cutting off my head. Sorry, I kind of threw this stream together. This is the night before Thanksgiving. You can give me a bit of a break here, can't you guys? There we go. So it's all fuzzy in the back. I gotta work on it. Anyways, so he's gonna get that. I have probably another magical item I'm planning to put in there. I don't remember if they got Yinogu's flail, which in of itself is also magical. It allows them to use the same sort of attacks that he uses on them, which is like stun, confuse, extra damage once per turn. So not quite as powerful as when Yinogu has it, but still has it. The downside is it turns them into like a little bit of hyena. They get like a little bit like hyena features, the sharp teeth, the insatiable hunger, Um, but the weapon itself is very powerful, so we'll see if they keep it or if they presumably trade it into Candlekeep like they tend to do. So that'll be like next session. That'll probably take the first 2 hours of the session, and then I expect for the second half they'll go back to Avernus. They've already toyed with the ideas of like going to Bel's volcano to like fight Bel versus going to Stygia and just kind of going on and maybe coming back. I understand why they're kind of like, hey, we need to go take out Bel because Bel is holding a contract over Ava. And if Ava dies and it's her last life, he gets her soul. So going forward without taking care of this contract is kind of a big deal. However, I don't want it to be easy for them. I want this sort of contract to loom over them and to really be something that they have to worry about the whole time. And so I don't plan to let them just walk up and face Bel that easy. You know, it's not like Inogu, just walk up, fight him, banish him. Like, this devil is super powerful, has like ages and ages of like prep and planning. For them to even get close to him, they must like exhaust a ton of their resources. Like, he's got a whole volcano fortress that they will have to fight through just to get to him. And in the case that they do manage to close in, he's got to have some tricks up his sleeves. And really, they need to learn their lesson that if you go up against a super powerful, one of the like 9 lords of hell, there are consequences to that. And I don't really know what that will be, but I expect them to unfold in a kind of surprising way for my players if that's the route that they decide to go down. Probably won't end up with them winning, although they are very strong, and I can't say for sure that they would or wouldn't be able to win. So I got to have something ready for that, and maybe we'll get to that a little bit tonight. But mostly what I wanted to do tonight was to visit Stygia, make sure we are at least set to go there with how things are going to start, and then give ourselves time to flesh out the parts that it looks like they're going to go to. So I have a general outline of the world, a general outline of the sandbox sort of quests I'm going to give them. It's not really a sandbox at this point. It's more like there's 3 quest lines and they can choose which of the 3 they want to do. It didn't really have a lot of the cross sandboxy type stuff that you normally would, but it'll work for our purposes at least. So let's start with what I've done since our last session for Stygia. So I'm going to pull up the map of Stygia. So I've done a bit of revisions on this. I have this token here. So this 5 token represents the alleged 5. And so if you look at it from here, this is what the view of the players are going to have on the screen. They can't see anything, right? They just literally see with like basically half a square in each direction around them. So as this token moves, you will see that they will get more and more of the world revealed to them as they travel. And so you can see this is what they see now, and then this side of light gray shows them what they... Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. It shows them what they've revealed within the world. And in this way, they don't see the whole world. They only get to see little bits of it around at a time. They're kind of blindly exploring. To reiterate, remember, all of this like ice patch that they're on, it's literally like multiple ice flows that are like floating, like glaciers, ice flows. They're not solid. They're constantly shifting around each other and floating free. So they're basically jumping from like moving ice flow to moving ice flow, trying to pick their way across the landscape, not fall into the ice cold freezing water, or even the river Styx, because this water down the middle is the river Styx. And, you know, the land itself is just ever shifting thing. So presumably when they camp for the night, they camp, their ice flow is going to move and they're going to end up in a different location than they actually were to begin with, which should be fun. But we can see here, I basically have 3 different biomes, you could call them. The first biome is this light blue ice, which are the ice flows as I'm referring to them, which is basically all of the shifting thinner, low level is in like not high ice. And so the kind of things you would see here would be like sea creatures and potentially like Sahuagin coming up out of the water, animals like polar bears, wolf pack, stuff like that can be hunting them. But you're not going to see a lot of like giants. There's a lot of frost giants here in this layer, but they're not going to be walking around this thin ice because the ice doesn't really support them, right? So that's where these glaciers come in. So this dark blue is like taller, more like steady, heavier ice, which are what I'm referring to as the glacier biome, and that contains things like frost giants, ice trolls, things that are bigger that wouldn't necessarily make sense to be on this kind of thin moving ice. And lastly, we have this large desert in the south, which is I believe it's called what are we calling it? It's called the Midnight Desert. So there's a cult of the Midnight Desert. This is called the Midnight Desert. And in here, there are all kinds of shrines and pyramids and temples and this whole kind of like Egyptian cult with a god that rules from here named Set, who is also known by some other names, but he is kind of like the god that created Yuan-Ti in a way. He kind of has like a jackal head, but also secretly is like this snake. So they have a potential to kind of come into this desert area, which gives them a reprieve from the ice cold. Because if you remember, it's so cold here that like it's said to like freeze the inhabitants' souls if they're not attuned to the plane, and even like cause their blood to freeze. So part of the downsides here is that they're not allowed to take long rests when they're in the cold. But in the desert, they're shielded from that sort of coldness. But then that brings other sort of dangers to it. So what I've done is, for now, I've created a couple of random encounters. So I can show you this document I created. So within Stygia, within the ice flows, the way I've done this is I've created 3 types of encounters. So encounter 1 are combat encounters, which are like whatever you encounter is there and it's going to be like a fight. Here you can see like Sahuagin kind of pop up out of the water and ambush him. Let me see if I could... Wish there was a way I could shift this over a bit so you guys could see it. But anyways, Sahuagin kind of pop up, water them. Ice Devil Glacier Assault, which is like essentially they're walking under like a big glacier, and a big chunk of it breaks off and falls at them, and they have to dodge out of the way as these ice devils are like gleefully assaulting them, and then, you know, a combat breaks out afterwards. Pack of Winter Wolves. So winter wolves are these sort of wolves that are smart enough to talk. So they just will basically be hunted by a pack of them that can kind of talk to them and threaten them. Dire Polar Bear, which is a stat block I made, which is just taking like a polar bear and buffing the crap out of it. So it's like bigger, tougher, stronger, and angrier. Ice Trolls, which are pretty cool here on the ice flows. I guess I did do ice trolls because they're not as big as giants, so I did put some in the ice flows. And they are these sort of like trolls that put off cold. They can like grab and like re-energize themselves. I forget what else they do, but they're like trolls to the next level, so they're a little harder to beat than trolls. And the biggest combat encounter here is like a frost salamander. So let me show you D&D Beyond real quick. So a frost salamander is this big sort of creature. It's a huge elemental, technically, that is immune to cold, vulnerable to fire, and they have this like ice breath that does a lot of damage, almost like a dragon. However, when these things take fire damage that they're vulnerable to, it automatically recharges their breath, which allows them to do more damage. Other than that, he's got like extra claws, so he can like claw, bite. It's like I said, it's not super strong. It's only like a challenge rating 9, but the interesting thing is it has burrow, and tremor sense. So it's able to burrow under the ice, come up out of the ice in the middle of the group, and like assault them, and then like go back down and kind of do like this hit and run tactic. Theoretically, they can run away, but it's pretty fast, with its 40-foot burrow, 60-foot speed. So getting away from it might not be as easy. But it should be able to just hit and run tactic. And my plan with these random encounters, the combats, is not to give them a combat that's so strong that they are like taxed outright like I would in Avernus, but to tax their resources slowly over time since they can't take long rests. So those are the combat encounters I have. And then the second type of encounter is what I'm calling interesting encounters. These are not combat focused. They could certainly lead to combat if the players so choose, but they are just interesting things that the players may come across. So this is one that I pulled from one of the sources, but it's like a group of Nuperibus, which are these like super lazy. It's like the lore is when souls come to hell, they become a lemur, which is like this blob of nothingness. That's the weakest devil you could possibly be, right? And then from there, as they prove themselves, they get promoted to the higher levels by these devils. They come, they grab one, they turn it into an imp. The imp gets promoted up the chain or whatever. Nuperibus are actually the opposite. They're like the lemurs that show up that are so lazy, they're so gluttonous, slothful in life that they don't want to do anything. So they kind of get demoted into these things that are like bloated sacks with their eyes sewn shut and their mouths sewn shut. And they're like, they're poisonous. They're good at tracking things, but they're lazy, right? So this encounter is basically, you come across a group of them sitting around a floating ice floe. That should be ice floe. And in this case, there's an imp in the middle that's basically in charge of this group and not sure what to do because he doesn't want the responsibility, but the last leader died, so now it's fallen to him. So he's trying to find one of them to promote so that he can pass the buck to them. Meanwhile, none of them are interested because they're all lazy. And so, could the PCs just intervene and kill every single one? Yeah, absolutely. Could they just talk it out, try to find a solution? Yeah, maybe. And the leader of the whole group gets this dagger of blind sight, which I thought was cool because they have like no eyes, no mouth, so it makes sense for someone to, like the leader, to actually have sight. And since blind sight is kind of a recurring thing in our campaign, I thought it'd be fun to have that item in there. So that's like an interesting encounter, right? The other ones I have is this ice sculptor, which is this glacier, and then there's an ice devil that is trying to make the perfect sculpture. So his island is just full of sculptures of these creatures that are made from body parts, like human body parts, like arms, legs, kind of bloody snow carved into these things. And he wants like feedback from the players. And if they like aren't straight with him, if they're like, oh yeah, I guess it's okay, then he gets upset. And if they're like, oh, you suck, he gets upset. He wants like praise, but like honest praise. And if you don't truly like that, he gets mad and kicks you off his island. And if you don't abide by it, he can animate the things to fight you as like ice golems. Levistus' tomb. So these last two are kind of really interesting. So Levistus is the Lord of the Lair. He sits inside a giant iceberg that he's trapped in because Asmodeus has trapped him in it. And he just wanders adrift throughout his lair and he has no control over where he can go. And he's tried really hard to find a way to control it. Not able to. So they could stumble across the Lord of this lair randomly in one of these interesting encounters. It's just like a glacier with this big clear thing. Levistus clearly entombed in the center because the ice is clear, and all of his like closest confidants are like on the island protecting him, so they would have a chance to interact with him and maybe find out what he's all about or what he wants. Should be interesting. And last, like Geryon's pillar. So Geryon is the previous ruler of this lair. It was taken away from them and given to Levistus. Geryon has this pillar that floats around, and it allows the PCs to kind of interact with it. And there's this whole lore about it that if you offer them your right hand, then he can give you power. So there's a statue with a cutout of him and like an indentation right where his like left hand is in the thing. So if the PCs insert their hand into the hole, it cuts it off and attaches a new like ghoulish, fiendish hand that gives them cool powers, but they have to be evil to like keep it up. Otherwise, it loses its powers. So it's just a interesting encounter. It's not a combat, but it's just interesting. So not every encounter they come across is going to be a combat. Lastly, I have these story encounters, which are the heart of what I'm doing here, which is to say I have 3 main quest lines that push the story for how they're going to get off this lair. And so the 3 storylines I have are an Amnesu pulling a cart, and that starts the Levistus cult quest line, not the Levistus devil quest line. I have jackal-headed warriors venturing across the plains, and that is the start of the Cult of the Midnight Desert quest chain. And then the third one is the Sahuagin envoy, which is the start like of the Sahuagin coming up to the surface and asking the PCs to help them do their quest. So the way they get these main 3 story hooks is by rolling a random encounter that's a story encounter and then getting one of those 3 random story encounters. And I have no idea which one the PCs are going to get. And if they get one, I have no idea if they're going to take that hook and run with it. And then you can see here for the glacier biome, the 3 combats I have are like frost giants, of course. Remorazes, which are like these big frost worms that burrow. Kind of like the frost salamander, but a little different. And then, just to reiterate that we're in hell with devils, just ice devils that are kind of there to show them, hey, we are in a plane of hell and there are devils. And for the 3 interesting encounters, I don't have 3 different story encounters, but the 3 interesting encounters are a group of Levistus cultists that are proving their faith by skinny dipping in a frozen lake and seeing which one of them can stay in the longest without dying. Just a little interesting. A frost giant and an ice troll sitting around a campsite. The troll was sent to be eaten by the giant, but neither is sure they want to go through with it. So this is a bit of lore here. So if you look at like frost giant lore, there's a giant with multiple heads, which is called the everlasting one. They look like this. And in the lore, it says frost giants may turn to Vaprak, a god of strength and hunger, worshipped by ogres and trolls, out of desperation, and he'll send them like a ice troll. And if they eat that ice troll, their body can be mutated and turned into like one of these like multi-headed trollish giant abomination. So what the PC stumble across is like that kind of in progress, but neither the troll nor the giant are entirely sure that they want to go through with it. And then lastly, this is just for like the comedic element alone. A frozen body, clearly not dressed for cold weather, frozen. They're wearing shorts, have a weird contraption around their neck, which are binoculars, and are wearing a strange shirt in an unknown language. And I'm going to describe it to the players like it's almost like hieroglyphics on the shirt. And if they try to like decipher them, they're really just emojis. There's like this heart, eye, heart, and then Statue of Liberty emoji. So any one of us would just imagine it's like a tourist from New York with like the I Love New York shirts, right? Only in this weird sort of world. Like, how did this person end up here? I don't know. But he's going to be frozen to death on the plains, clutching something in his fist. And if they break the fist open and get it, it's a soul coin. So, you know, interesting encounter can lead to a soul coin, but also just get a little bit of a laugh out of the PCs. And then in the desert, I've got 6 combat encounters, which is like jackal warriors with 3 zombies chained to them, beholder zombies, a sword wraith commander, and part of this wraith commander, his ability is to like summon commanders to his side, so he can like summon more people to back him up. Frost giant zombies, bone claw, and nightwalker. It's a lot of undead to kind of show that this is sort of like an underworld Egyptian death sort of cult. So definitely a lot of stuff to do with undead. But a change of pace, to be sure. And for the interesting encounters in the desert, I have a giant crevasse opens up in the sand with glittering golden water down below. Soft mucus beckons up from beneath the sand, causing each person to have to make an intelligence saving throw or be controlled. causing them to throw themselves into the water. Those who fall in are retrieved, cleaned up, and brought to Set's temple wearing nothing but ceremonial robes where they await his judgment. So this is a way to kind of have the PCs fall into this trap. Intelligence is not my party's specialty, so some of them may be like charmed by this thing. I might have to consider making it more of a wisdom or a charisma, which is more in line with charming, but I really wanted to hammer that like intelligence part home. And then that like kind of brings them before Set, which can start his quest line as another way to kind of hook into the quest line, or just be an interesting sort of like moment. And then here we have a group of people dressed in ceremonial robes wander aimlessly in the lost sand. They do not seem to respond to the characters, notice them, or do anything towards them. If they are physically restrained, they let out a wail that stuns anybody who fails a con save, and then continues on their path. So this is playing into the whole, when a follower of Set dies, their soul is brought to this land, and they wander it until they find their place, and are gathered up and kind of like given a task in their afterlife. So these are like people that have just kind of found their way here, but not necessarily found their purpose yet. So I just want to kind of give that world kind of ambiance to the players. And this is another fun one. So an imp rides along in a sled, pulled by 4 amnesu. So amnesu are like at the top of the chain, and imps are like at the bottom of the chain. So this takes that and flips it on itself and shows that here the infernal hierarchy don't mean jack, because this is a different hierarchy entirely. So he pulls up near the characters, tips his golden hat, remarks on the awesomeness of the weather, makes like chit chat but won't help or hinder the characters, and at some point he'll get mad at one of his amnesu and whip him with a golden whip, apologize for the interruption, and be on his way. Just a fun little encounter. And then I also caught this idea of these giant obsidian pillars, which I kind of drew on this map. You can see I got a bunch down here. I need to replay some of them so they're in the hexes completely. But the idea is there are these pillars that can offer knowledge to anyone who seeks it. So a PC can come, touch it in this obelisk sort of pillar, and they have to make a DC 20 charisma saving throw. If they fail, or if they willingly fail, they gain knowledge of something they didn't know, which it could be, I'm going to roll randomly. It could be expertise in a skill, training in a skill, a feat, any kind of like cool thing they could learn. However, they lose 2 points of their constitution every time they do it. So the idea is they can trade their life force for knowledge, and greedy people will come back over and over until they're kind of, not alive anymore, but have their knowledge. So we'll see if any of the PCs actually take that up. Okay, so now these are the revised quest lines that I've come up with since the last stream. So we can see here they enter Stygia. There are 3 quest hooks they will get. For the Levistus Devil quest hook, it started by coming across an amnesu pulling a sled across the plains. It's a really ornate safe, and he's like all of his pack animals that pulled it and all of his guards are dead. He's the only survivor, but he is determined to get his records where they need to go, to the city of Tantalin. So he asks the PCs, "Hey, help me get it here, and I'll do whatever I can to help you." And they're gonna, want help, probably getting to the next layer of hell. And so he'll help them do that if he is able to, help him along. So, first step, find this thing through the random story encounter. Escort him to Tantalin. There, he's going to give the PCs a quest, which is to find information that their rivals possess about Levistus' entombment. So there's a book of secrets that a rival faction of devils that are aligned with the previous owner, Garion. They need to go there and get that book of secrets from him. And if they can get that book of secrets, he will give them the pass they need to get down into the portal. So if they go there, they will find that this book of secrets exists, but there's going to be a council of amnesu that do not want them to. They won't let them meet with the leader, but they will work with them, come up with a plan, which is basically, we'll give you the book you're seeking, but we need you to do something for us, which is, go find this thing called the desert rose that only grows in the midnight desert. Bring one back to us, and we will, give you the book you seek. So this desert rose is a lore item that can be so in my world it takes 100 years to grow one flower. There are entire pyramids and people that worship Set. Their only job is to grow these things. And so what they have to do is spend 100 years. They're obviously growing more than one at a time, but the idea is there's not a lot of these. So they have to find their way to the desert. They have to find their way to the temple, and they have to make their way in. And I'm setting it up that the temple is not guarded by warriors. It's not guarded by any sort of thing. They welcome people in, but the devils itself, the temple itself, is all about making sure that whoever comes in is worthy. And so there's going to be sets of trials the PCs have to go through in order to get there. I want them to be separated and each one to face their own trials. Things like walking through a pit of poisonous snakes and being brave enough to not get bit, or solving crazy riddles, or solving brain teaser type puzzles, getting through a maze that's impossible. I'm going to put Hal, who can find his way through anything, into a maze that makes no logical sense and breaks the rules enough to make his mind go crazy, and see if he can find his way through. Things like that, where they have to prove themselves and do more than combat. And if they are successful through all those trials, they will make their way into the garden, which is this beautiful garden with a fake sun in the sky, and they will be able to acquire one of these desert roses, and then they can take the desert rose back. The Garian's leader is I think he's a pit fiend, I think I wrote, that has had his mind erased by the river Styx, and this desert rose can be used to basically amplify any poison in existence or any antitoxin in existence. So by using the desert rose, they can cure their leader from his mind wipe and get him back into his leadership status, which is what they really want. And then they'll give the Book of Secrets, which, surprise, surprise, is actually empty completely. It's this, they've planted this myth of this Book of Secrets for ages, and made sure people knew about it so that the other faction would want it, but there's really no secrets to it. So they'll get the Book of Secrets, they'll return to Levistus' devil, who will then be upset, but they'll honor their deal. And lastly, they'll allow the access to the portal. So in the middle of the city of Tantalin is a giant tower, and at the very bottom of that tower is a portal. The PCs will be able to go down to the portal and fall to the next layer of hell, which is Malbolge. And that's the Levistus cult questline as roughly outlined. For the desert, they're going to find some people wandering, these jackal-headed warriors wandering, who are going to tell them, hey, if you've had enough of this, devil stuff, come to the desert. We will... What did I say it was? It was, the Squadron A soldiers, led by Atarameturanu. It's just a long Egyptian name. Each with a snake body and a jackal head, wielding spears, tied between two of them holding a spear as an imp. They're heading to the desert. They see the mortals. They invite them to travel with them back to the desert and speak with their leader how to best utilize their skills and offer them relief from the cold. Okay. Eventually that will lead to, once they've been marked and chosen, they will be met in the desert by cultists who will guide them safely to a small pyramid. The pyramid is the host to Hatshepsut, a Yuan-Ti anathema warlock of Set. Her goal is to ascend to godhood. Lofty goals. She believes that in order to achieve this, she needs a ceremonial relic possessed by the Frost Giants. The Frost Giants used to rule this layer long ago, but they've fallen into infighting, splintering their factions, making them weak. The time to strike and take the dagger is now. Characters are asked to go there, and they will grant the characters what they desire, a portal to the next layer of hell if they do that. So the PCs can go to the glaciers, find the Frost Giants. They find a tribe that is not really, the leader's not really willing to even talk to them. Uh, the one caveat is if they still have the Matalock hammer that they got from Zariel, that is like a frost giant god sort of hammer, and they will instantly bow to the PCs and like try to do anything they can to help them. Although the leader will challenge whoever wields it to one-on-one combat, and if they win, then they want the hammer, and if they lose, they agree to give the PCs what they seek. Not an easy task, but the second in command will kind of pull the PCs aside and said, hey, there's another option here. That hammer you carry, there's no way the Frost Giant King is going to allow you to leave here alive with it. He's taking it one way or another. But if you were to help me defeat the white dragon, Versafareth, Lord of the White, and drive him from the Frost Giant's old homeland, it will allow Gresbarg to step up, claim the title of king from Niflmog, which is one of these giants with the multiple heads, the everlasting one, who's been driven mad from his transformation. And if he can go there to their ancient site and get the king's hammer, the others will bow to him, and there's a chance he could reunite all the splintered tribes under one banner, reuniting them in their homeland, and kind of help the giants reclaim the greatness that they once were. And so the PCs have a couple options here. They can either just defeat the king and get what they want and find this dagger, or they can take this guy's quest up, go to the dragon's lair, and defeat him. And so that's the last step, which is this dragon roosts in the old lair of the Frost Giants. He's got this whole cave. It'll be an epic fight with like an ancient white dragon. My storyline hook in this sort of thing is that Set's kind of had this fungus that's like left under the ice from his desert that's been creeping out, and he's created this fungus in the dragon's lair to drive it mad, so it's been leaving its lair and like just attacking people like crazy. And so the PCs have two ways to really solve this quest. One, fight, kill it. They get all the treasure, they get the Frost Giant's lair back, etc., etc. Two, if somebody recognizes his madness and is able to like cast a greater restoration on him, it can restore his sanity enough to make him realize how irrational he's being, and he'll begrudgingly offer the characters any favor they want for saving him without having to fight him. And he even tells them if they're looking for a portal to the next lair, he knows how to get to one. And what he will do is kind of put them on his back and dive into the freezing waters and go down into the Sahuagin's lair below the ice and like take them right through the Sahuagin like homeland and army to the portal and drop them off so they can swim down through the Sahuagin homeland portal. Or they defeat the dragon, they get the king's hammer, the Frost Giant upholds his end of the bargain, they take the dagger back to the cult, and then the cult take them to their pyramid and allow them access to their portal deep below their labyrinth in their last pyramid. Again, just outlines, but there's a lot of ways that this could go for my players. Lastly, the third quest hook that we're talking about is the Sahuagin quest hook. Sorry. So for the Sahuagin, I really wanted something that was completely out of left field. And so Sahuagin have been here in our campaign earlier. I thought they needed to make a return. So the Sahuagin will come to the surface and say, hey, you guys are strong warriors. Maybe you can help us and we can help each other. One of our strongest warriors is currently being held prisoner by the cult of Levestus in a place called the Hollows of the Vanquished. If you can go there and retrieve him, actually it's a her. If you can go there and retrieve her and bring her back to us, we will reward you with, passage through our homeland to the next lair like you seek. So the PCs will go to the Halls of the Vanquished, which are in this glacier. It's this whole halls. And what it is, it's literally like a cult training ground with like a museum. And as you walk the halls of the museum, there are like statues of like so many like strong things they've captured over the years. And the backstory is they had this spell called like Bind to Hell. And so in the material plane or wherever they are, they cast it on something, and instead of like killing them, their soul is transported to this halls of the vanquished in hell, and they can only be freed from the frozen state by a command word chosen at the moment the spell's cast. And then they communicate that command word later to somebody in charge of records, and they put it down in their record keeping and file it away. And so every single frozen statue can be freed if you get the code word from the records. And so it's a walking museum that people are allowed to come in. You can walk the museum and see, like, frost giants, mortals, celestials, like everything kind of frozen. And cultists can train by like saying, oh, I want to fight against this, Sahuagin champion. And they'll drag the frozen thing to like one of these battle rooms, unthaw it, and then you fight it. If you defeat it, the soul is like put back on its like podium in its frozen state again. And so it's just a way for these cultists to train. And also kind of have like honor and trophies for Levistus and all these like powerful things that control it. So the PCs can come to these halls and try to free this thing. I'm thinking there's this let me see if I can pull it up. There is this sort of I guess you call it. Oh, I don't have it on this computer right now. Sorry. It's on the DM's Guild. It's called Guide to Capers and Heists, and what it is a way to run like a heist type thing. With like they get to do some planning. You get to choose like how do you want to do it? Do you want to like do a smash and grab? Do you want to like con them? Do you want to like charm them? Do you want to like get leverage and blackmail someone? It gives them different approaches. All the PCs contribute with skills. You make like an approach roll to see how well you approach. And then complications arise, and sometimes like, oh god, we were gonna do this charming thing, but now it's become a combat, and you shift gears. So I might run that sort of approach to this, which I think would be fun. Or I might just run it as like a straight. They can go in and do combat. So I don't know yet. I did come up with like different statues and different things. Like the guard is an ice devil. All the cultists specialize in like paralyzing magic. There's an elder obelix there, which are these like kind of slime things that like eat your memories and like make you like lose who you are. So the cultists paralyze you while this thing like eats you, which could be pretty strong. So maybe that'll be my last resort. I'll have it mapped out in combat in case things go south, but I really want them to try to pull it off in like a heist situation, hopefully. And then, from there, from the Halls of the Vanquished, they bring the champion back, and then, since she's been frozen for so long, she wants to prove to, like, the devils how, and have a triumphant return, they want to enter the champion into a tournament called the Duelist Chasm. So the Duelist Chasm is here on the map. It's actually in the middle of the River Styx. There's this temple right here, which is basically a Colosseum. And the Colosseum is the only... So one of the laws of this lair is that no devil can hurt another devil. For any reason. No combat, no anything. Everything has to be political scheming, but you can't as a devil pick up a weapon and use it against another devil. You can certainly try to trick PCs into hurting your opponents for you, but you can't directly hurt them. So the Duelist Chasm is the only place where you're allowed to do that. You go there, you sign a contract, and you have one-on-one combat against someone that you might have a bone to pick with, but both people have to agree. So they have these grand tournaments, and all the devils come and watch, and it's just like a fun time. And it also allows us to do this Colosseum battle thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a 16-man bracket, 16-person bracket, and if the PCs want to join, then they're allowed to join, with the stipulation being it's all one-on-one combat. So I will have probably 2 open spots if like up to 2 of the PCs want to join in and play, and the PCs will then have combats one-on-one. Like, it's not supposed to be to the death, but when whoever wins the fight has the option to like finish them or not finish them. The law says the victor has the choice. So the champion needs to go there and enter the tournament. The PCs can go enter the tournament. And either the PCs don't enter at all, in which case they just get to watch the tournament play out. The Sahuagin will uphold their end of the bargain, which says, now we'll grant you access to our portal. The problem being, the portal, they have to swim miles and miles down underwater. So A, they need to hold their breath, and B, they have to not die from freezing cold temperatures. So they might not even be able to pull it off. I don't know what they have access to and how creative they can get. Secondly, if they win the tournament, then they get a lot of prestige, and they are able to, like, you know, grant the devils will, like, see who they are and come and talk to them and maybe catch the Eye of Levistus, and maybe they'll be able to get access to the next level that way. But that's the rough idea of the Levistus Devil quest line. So I have, like I said, I have the main quest lines. I've got the random combat encounters. I got the interesting story hooks. And the main way that they advance to the next layer is through these main story quest lines. And which ones the places get is going to be random. And which ones they even want to take on and follow, that's up to them. And so on this map, we have, this is like a random combat outpost. And so if they come here, they're going to find out it's actually pretty sparsely populated because a lot of them have been called to Avernus for the Blood War because the PCs kind of stirred up a lot of trouble there. This is the Duelist Chasm. This is the city of Tantalin. Up here in the glaciers, this is the Frost Giant's homeland, where the White Dragon lives. This is the Hall of the Vanquished down here. And this is Set's Pyramid. This is the temple where the Desert Rose can be found. Yeah, and that's kind of my layout for here. So I would like to try to maybe together tonight, like, flesh out what we can do in terms of what should be the things we fight in the combat. I did want to share a couple of other things I had made. So I made 2 battle maps for these random sort of encounters. So this is like an ice flow battle map to kind of show you like what ice flows look like. So you can see there's this giant floating chunk of ice, and then it's in motion around all these other chunks of ice with this like ice cold freezing water below. So if we have like a combat, I've created over here under monsters, like the Winter Wolf. So this would be the Winter Wolf that they fight. The Dire Polar Bear. This is the token I found for the Dire Polar Bear. I don't know, it's just like an icy polar bear. The Ice Troll, which is from Rime of the Frost Maiden. You can see it has regeneration, bite, claw, and if the claw hits, then it causes disadvantage if they don't make their con save. And then lastly, but not least, the Frost Salamander that we talked about. So they have these like interesting kind of combats here. They can jump across the ice to the ice flow. These things can try to grab the PCs and drag them into the water if need be, because they're not going to get hurt by the cold, although the PCs will. Same thing if they come, like if there's a Sahuagin fight random encounter, the Sahuagin emerge from the water and try to like grab the PCs and drag them underneath, because that's their plan. But this is just a fun little combat map I made. This is a second ice flow combat map I made, which is a little different. It's more water, bigger water, little like lakes in the middle of the thing. But like, just if I need to do a combat encounter in an ice flow, I have 2 maps I've made up, and I can just like throw the tokens on and wing it. So I need to make, what I need to make too before they get there is obviously I need to make some glacier battle maps, or find some. Those might be easier to find. And I also need to do some desert type ones. So I did find a bunch of cool maps. Let's see if I can find these real quick. Avernus battle maps. So like, here's a cool like desert battle map that I could use. Right. Maybe they fight in a random oasis in the desert. If I need a battle map around one of the obelisks, kind of the ones that they can touch, I have this ready to go. Maybe I want to have like a mini pyramid encounter. So there's like this small pyramid with like whatever I want to put inside. I don't know. A pyramid with like a giant monster in it. And then what are the other? I found this desert temple. I might turn this into like a random temple dungeon and flesh it out. And here's like a glacier / ice flow battle map I can use if I need to as well. Just some random maps I found I think that I could use, and I have them all ready to go. So like if it looks like the campaign's going a certain way, I'll probably start focusing more on that piece. So my plan is get them to Stygia, have enough content to like start them off, figure out where they're going, and then my next time between sessions will be to really like put my hooks into that part and flesh it out. So I've already spent a lot of time coming up with like general world where I feel comfortable enough to run a session if I needed to and wing it. And then I can use time as I see where they're actually going to actually be like, all right, now I really need to flesh out the last part of like the Sahuagin quest line, or what sort of challenges are they going to face in the temple. I don't know yet at this point, but if the PCs end up going down that path, I will then take the time to fill that out. So that's kind of my strategy, is to plan big picture stuff because that's fun, and then flesh out the little picture stuff as I have time. So let's see, what did I say? Yeah, so let's do this real quick. Okay. Let's see if I can find a 16-man single elimination bracket. This should probably do. So let me see if there's a way to. I wonder if there's a way to do it in Google Docs very easily. Let's see if there's a generator I can find. Tournament bracket generator. Oh, challenge. They do a lot of good stuff. Okay. I'm going to call it Dual Chasm. Single elimination. So what I need to do is come up with like 14 things. So here's the thing, right? The PCs are not going to be in every fight. If you think about a 16-man bracket, the first round there's 16 people, half of them win, then there's 8 left, half of them win, then there's 4 left, and then half of them win. So if you were to win a 16-man single elimination tournament, you have to win 4 fights in a row. So 16-man round, 8-man round, 4-man round, 2-man round. Okay, so really, at most, one PC only has to have 4 fights. So I really only have to come with 4 real fights I expect them to fight, and the rest I can just make up crazy stuff. Now, if we say, actually, I have 2 open spots, so there's 2 PCs that can do it, I really need to have 8 fights ready to go. But for now, let's just come up with 4. We'll come up with 4 real fights, and then 16. I'll just put placeholders. So let's say my PCs are level 15 at this point. So I need something that can actually maybe not fully challenge them, but give them a bit of a fun fight. So I'm going to come into D&D Beyond, look at monsters. First, I want to find some sort of devil champion that I think could be fun for them to fight. So something, let's see. Something like a horned devil could be fun. You know, they hurl flames, but it's probably not that much. 178 hit points, hurl flame, ranged attack. Tail attack could like cause the wound to fester. This could be a tough challenge for anyone to actually take down. Who's Orthon? Orthon. When an Archduke of 9 health needs a creature track found and done away or captured, it falls to an Orthon. They're infernal bounty hunters. So what do they have? They have like a dagger, an infernal crossbow that has 6 different effects. Explosive retribution. When it's reduced 15 hit points to fewer, the Orthon causes itself to explode. It explodes itself, its dagger, and its brass crossbow. Not really something you'd expect to see in like a fight that's not really to the death. Like, ah! But it could be a reaction. Like, if they go for the killing blow, then he blows up to hurt them. I'm going to put one of these in just for the hell of it. Okay. So I'm going to put in Orthon. Okay. What else we got? I'm going to throw in a Horn Devil. PCs know him. Ooh, an Avernus. They haven't actually fought one of these yet. It's like this sort of like fallen angel devil. So what does an Avernus actually fight like? They deal an extra 3d8 poison damage on a hit. They make 3 attacks. They have True Sight, which is interesting. Longsword does poison damage. A long bow they can pull out. Everything's all about poison. And parry allows it to like add 4 AC against 1 attack. Alright, let's do one of these. Okay, and then maybe like one more powerful devil. I could do like a Narzagon. I feel like they're going to get enough Ice Devils, so maybe not an Ice Devil. Maybe something a little weaker. Let's see. Chain Devil could be fun. Chain Devil, dragging like a couple of chains, like animating them. He's like covered in chains. He drops them to the ground as the fight starts and animates them. Let's do a Chain Devil. Okay. And then I'm going to do PC Spot. And then Sahuagin Champion, because they come here presumably during the Sahuagin Champion questline. So the Sahuagin Champion has to have one of the spots. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I need 10 filler type things. So, first of all, absolutely can't do this without having an imp. Just an imp with an attitude that thinks he's so awesome. The only chance he gets to really prove himself and fight people that he hates, but he has no chance. All right. Definitely a Frost Giant. We've already set the lore with like the Frost Giants kind of trying to prove themselves. In this realm, we need a Frost Giant on hand. For sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're halfway. So we need 8 more interesting things. So the things have to be, I guess, it'd have to make sense for them to be here, right? So let's see. Is there any kind of phase that makes sense? Oh God, we could have Smiler come back. It'd be really awesome to have like a cameo from Smiler, but I don't know if it really makes sense, honestly. Unfortunately, I don't think it would make too much sense. Ooh, a Madcap. Yeah, we're doing a Madcap. Madcaps were earlier in the adventure, so they're kind of fun to come back. They're Smiler the Defiler. Alright. Let's see, what else can we do besides the Fae? Any sort of monstrosity that would make sense. Something high enough to actually be challenging. So let's start looking like CR5. Ooh. We want something that's like smart enough to like something with like a low int doesn't make sense for like a organized combat, you know what I mean? It needs to be something that is smart enough to like come here, sign up. I think a Yuan-Ti makes sense. So Yuan-Ti Abomination. They have spell casting, suggestion, fear, animal friendship, multi-attack, bite, constrict, scimitar. 127 hit points. Yeah, let's just do one of these. It's like I said, it's mostly filler. I don't know if the pieces are supposed to fight it. So yeah, I mean, Yuan-Ti fits our set temple thing we're kind of going for, right? Okay, let's see what else. I think we'll do like a Warlock of Levistus and maybe a Warlock of Geryon. Two different warlocks that kind of like both signed up to represent their master. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 12. I need 4 more. Yinogu. Any good CR8 humanoids? See a blackguard. You can do a blackguard. It's just like this dark paladin, kind of to kind of be a reflection of what Marius potentially could become. So blackguard. Siraj is an interesting choice. I'm going to use Siraj the Hunter as a stat blocks. He's from Dragon Heist, but he's this like kind of like big bow user that has like a big longbow that does extra damage, which is cool. So at least 2 more. Let's go 2 more like low level. Let's see. How about Yugolas? Any Yugolas could make sense to be here. They're just here to train and do. So Yugolas are kind of like there's devils and demons are both fiends. Yugolas are also fiends, but they're this neutral third party that, you know, takes advantage of what they can. Ooh, Nikolas are actually pretty cool. I'm gonna do one of these. And what's a Durgaloth? 5-armed weird bug thing. And a spell casting, darkness, fear, sleep. Okay. 2 claw attacks, claw, flailing claws, military walk speed. Targets each creature than this thing's better at like crowd control. It doesn't really make sense for like a one-on-one combat. Maybe just for the hell of it, let's do a Mind Flayer. I know they're not Yugolas, but something to again exploit this low intelligence that our PCs might have. So I'm gonna do a Mind Flayer. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm going to randomize the seeds just to make a generic bracket, see how it comes up. And then I can add the bracket. So this is the bracket as it was generated. So let's we have Yuan-Ti Abomination versus the Horned Devil, the Avernus versus the Nikoloth, the Chain Devil versus the Blackguard, the Sahuagin Champion versus the Madcap, the Mind Flayer versus the Warlock of Geryon, the Warlock of Levistus versus the Frost Giant, which is too bad because I think the two Warlocks should fight each other. The PCs start fighting an Imp. That's hilarious. And the Orthon fights the Raj the Hunter. So, presumably, all these fights would advance, and what I would probably do is ahead of time know, like, okay, well, this is the Horned Devil wins this fight, or like the Yuan-Ti wins this fight, the Avernus wins that fight, and then make the PC fight this one. If they win, they advance here, and then they would fight whoever I chose to fight between these two. And the Sahuagin Champion is here. So in this case, let's see. I probably won't do this, but PC fights an Imp. PC's 900% going to win that fight. Next, they probably fight Orthon, which is that like devil thing. If they win that, they would fight the strongest of these four things. So a Mind Flayer or a Frost Giant. Maybe let's say a Mind Flayer. And if they win that, they fight the strongest thing on this whole side, which we could say is like a Yuan-Ti Abomination. Maybe the Avernus wins, the Nikoloth. These are all things that could win. And if they win that, they would win this whole sort of like the Duelist Chasms tournament. So I'm going to save this list so I can regenerate this bracket as needed. Where is the... Oh, okay. Duelist Chasm. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about tonight, and like I said, like here's the thing. I have this list. This is a general idea, right? If the PCs do go down this quest line and plan to go here, I have plenty of time to figure it out and to work on how I'm going to actually set these stat blocks, set it so it's the most like fun. For now, I have a general outline of what potentially it could be. So I want to finish up tonight with my sort of, I guess, intro, or like what I plan to do to like introduce the PCs to Stygia, because they're going to get on a raft from Avernus and they're going to float down here. So we're going to have a sort of narration, I guess, where I dump a bunch of narration on them. And I wanted to kind of read this out, see if it flows well, because I haven't read it out loud. I've written it, right? And then the opening scene, and I'll tell you guys how it's going to be. And, you know, if you guys have any, give me some feedback if you like it, if you don't like it. Post a comment if you're watching this on like YouTube or something. Let me know in the comments if you got any ideas for this. But here goes nothing. Okay. Let's see. There will be background music for this. I have to find the music that I want to use, but anyways. You find yourself floating in on the river Styx. Maybe, yeah. Guided by the Marinloth that paddles you down the dark waters of the river. The hot air of Avernus burns around you, but within the confines of the boat, the discomfort melts away into a pleasant relief from the torment you have been accustomed to. Up ahead, the river looks to descend into a dark tunnel that dips downwards as the unmistakable sound of rushing water echoes from the caverns. Without pause, the Marinaloth guides the boat down the river into the darkness, humming a tune softly as he does. His humming is quickly drowned out by the rushing water, and shortly after that, the screams of pain and torment. Multiple voices cry out: men, woman, child, devil, all yelling in agony as if being tortured, their haunting screams echoing in your brain long after they faded away from your ears. The ride gets bumpy as you hold on, trying not to tumble over into the river below. But never does it become dangerous. The keen skills of your operator easily dodging the various rocks, crash boats, and large creatures that seem to emerge from the dark. Eventually, that comes to an end as your boat levels out. The loud sound of rushing water being left behind. And at this point, Ava and Zeke, you both notice something strange. Despite the fact that you essentially went down a waterfall, the water appears to be flowing upwards. When you emerge, you find yourself floating on a fairly still river of water. River of water, yeah, I need to clean that up. The humming of your operator coming back in your ears. Coming towards the end of a cave, you emerge, not into an eternal sunset like you've grown accustomed to on Avernus, but instead a night of twilight. No moon nor stars fill the night sky, giving way to a complete pitch-black wasteland of night. Nearest to the edges of the river, giant chunks of ice floes float freely within a large body of water. It's then that you realize this lair seems to be a giant ocean. The only land in sight, free-floating chunks of glaciers that shift endlessly against each other. Your boat takes a small turn towards a nearby ice floe. The strong winds blow across your cheeks, threatening the comfortable bubble that you have here in your boat. The endless sounds of sloshing water, howling winds, and loud cracks as one ice floe crashes into another rings, making it hard to hear your guide's words. His outstretched arm fills in the blanks as you see a small floating chunk of ice, complete with a wooden dock. A small building lies here, just beyond the edge of the decaying wood, with a flickering light shining deep from within. The boat comes to a stop. The Marineloth smiles and gestures for you to depart. He adds, "If you require a return trip, feel free to book it here, and I will return to take you wherever you desire." As you exit the boat, standing here on the frozen ice chunks of Stygia, the boat returns back from the direction it came, leaving you stranded here. Immediately, the chill of the lair cuts you to your core. A wind rips through you so deep, you feel as if your blood might freeze. Your teeth begin chattering, and standing still for too long, you begin... Sorry, fix that typo. You begin to feel your feet freezing to the surface of the ice. A flash of lightning echoes overhead from the cloudless sky, lighting up this unassuming building in a bright light, giving it a slightly sinister feeling that fades with the light. Welcome, Alleged 5, to Stygia. So that's sort of the setting the tone for Stygia. This like cold, wet layer of night. Without dark vision, you can't see at all. And even with dark vision, you can only see within like 60 feet of you. So the only way you can really see like far away is by having some sort of light source. And so the PCs are going to be at a distinct disadvantage here. Which actually makes me question the hex map, right? Because if they have no dark vision at all, they should not be able to see nearly as far as they are seeing here, right? Because there's no way they're gonna have light that actually goes that far. So let's see. Right now I have 6 miles for their light. What if I set it to 3 miles? This lets them barely see off their hex. That might be more what I actually share with them. Maybe. I gotta think about it. So yeah, the first stop is going to be a visitor center. And so this is going to be a recurring gag I think I do. Not necessarily a gag, but it is kind of a recurring gag. Which is to say, you know, there's visitor centers on each layer hill where you can check in and get, like, advice or, like, fill out paperwork or, like, get your passport. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be recurring. Every layer they go to will have a visitor center. So in this one, you know, near the end of the dock lies an unassuming building. Its construction is made out of wood and stone, despite the fact that neither resource appears visible in the immediate area. The squat one-story building has a wooden sign outside written in Infernal with a single sentence. Visitors check in here. A light flickering inside lets you know somebody is home. And so this, I want to evoke a bit of the Beetlejuice movie where, like, he gets the number and he has to wait for him to be called, and he looks and he's got, like, number, like really high number, and he looks around and, like, people have just been waiting forever. But I want it to be almost empty here. Very few people around, but you pull a number and you can see, like, they pull the number 1,485, but when they look up, it says now serving 1,365. So, you know, they either wait a very long time or they can find somebody around that has a number and, like, steal it. Like, somebody that's good at stealing could maybe, like, swap it. Every time the person calls up a number and services the customer, they take a 10-minute break and disappear. And they call the name for 5 minutes, and if they don't show up, they move on to the next number after taking a break. So I really just want to grind my players' gears. And the funny thing is, like, they could just leave. There's nothing that's forcing them to come here. There's, like, the laws, the rules are kind of like, yeah, you can't come here without paperwork that says you're allowed to be here. But, like, I don't know if the PCs really care about rules. But eventually, they will service the party. They will help them get some emergency travel papers if they don't have any. It costs 2 soul coins. It's good for 1 traveler and 4 direct reports. So one of them will have to be the leader. And then it's additional soul coin per 10 subordinates. You'll give them, like, a giant stack of papers to fill out with a bunch of silly questions, and I might expand this. And if you have any good questions you want me to ask them, post it in the chat, post it in the comments, and I'll work it into the game. But, like, name, place of birth, plane of origin, if applicable, reason for business in the 9 hells. Have you brought any food or creatures from a different plane of existence? Do you intend to overthrow the Lord of Stygia Levistus, or otherwise cause harm to his rule? Do you denounce Garion's influence on perjury of death? Do you prefer cats or dogs as a companion? It's just going to be this long list of questions they have to fill out. And then finally, you need your traveling companions, their titles, their roles. Once it's complete, he summons an imp, gives the paperwork, flies off to carry it for processing. It takes 2 days for these papers to be processed, which the PCs sit around and do nothing other than, like, freeze to death. If they want to rush it, they can, for 1 soul coin, they can do rush processing and get it done in 2 hours. And eventually the paperwork gets approved. They come back, they're stamped, they're handed the trials papers. Like, what do the travel papers actually do? Mechanically, nothing. Although, roleplay-wise, it could come up later when they, like, are, like, someone says, you know, do you have your travel papers? And they show them, then maybe there will be a way to get out of combat with, like, devils later or something like that. Because if you have officially stamped travel papers, devils shouldn't really be messing with you. But they're going to learn that, like, even having travel papers doesn't go too far because, like, when they get to the city of Tantalin, it's this ice city, right? And it's circular. And so it's divided into rings. There's, like, the outer ring and the outer city where all non-devils and the lowest forms of devils are allowed to go. And the lowest forms of devils are allowed to be as mean as they want to, like, the actual, like, non-devils. And then the next level in, which is, like, the mid-tier devils, PCs are not allowed to cross into that middle layer because they are not allowed because they're not in that hierarchy. And then the same thing in the center is reserved for the highest tier, the Amnesus, the Pit Fiend, etc. and that's where the tower is that they need to get to the portal. So that is to say, even having the travel paperwork doesn't go too far, at least on on this layer hell. But I'm interested to see how much I can like draw it out and make the PCs really get annoyed with this visitor center, and if they just stick around. If they just say screw it, we're leaving and go out, like cool, more power to them. But it'll be a fun experience to see how they react. And I plan to recur this gag on every floor. Like every layer of hell they go to will have a different visitor center with like a different kind of ambiance, a different theme. You can get like souvenirs. Like one of the things it says is like, they sell Levistus fragments. So you can get a fragment of Levistus that Levistus gives you. It costs 10 soul coins, or you can rent one for 1 soul coin. You have to give collateral, and you come back and trade it out. They allow you to not suffer the effects of the cold in the realm, and you get resistance to cold. So that's kind of an interesting mechanical benefit to them. So, but if they want to rent one for 1 soul coin, they have to leave a really expensive magic item as like collateral, or like a ton of gold. Guides can be hired at 1 soul coin per day, which can guide you to your destination, but travel so slow that would take forever. And then you can get like different knickknacks, like postcards, small ice figurines, cold weather clothing, postcards, whips. I wanted to mix it up between normal stuff and stuff that seems weird, like clothing, backpacks, postcards, self-flagellation whips, bracelets, sunglasses, sweatshirts, sacrificial daggers, bags of candy. Just throw in those crazy things in the list, right? Bury it in the middle. And that will be the first scene that sets the tone here in Stygia. And then from there, they go to the hex crawl, random encounters. And then we see what story encounters they come across. And then from there, we see, what happens next. That's my plan for Stygia, guys. Like that's what I got. I hope. In my head, it seems fun. I hope it comes out to be fun in game. And this also kind of serves a dual purpose, because one of the next campaign I plan to run is Rime of the Frost Maiden. And I really am thinking about leaning into the cold weather environment and the travel being like not very good. And so one of the ideas I'm pitching for that is like gritty realism, and like when they go on these like long adventures, they can take short rests every day, but not long rests, because you can't get a long rest unless you're in a comfortable environment. So this allows me to see how well the PCs can handle it over a long period of time, and if it's okay to do a bunch of medium encounters as opposed to like having to throw like deadly random encounters at them every day. So depending on how this goes, I may or may not do that for Frost Maiden, and I might just keep it light and do like a normal game like usual. The overarching story for this whole thing, right, which I haven't really talked about on this stream, is Hallandar has a quest to go free Erebus Kale from the 8th layer. And so he's got in his package like a guide, like maps, guides, go here, do this, this is your plan. So his first step is going to be to go to the city of Tantalin and to meet... What did I say? Let's see. Book passage and stick on Stygia. Once in Stygia, seek out your contact in the city of Tantalin. Adithus, a bright red-haired elvish man who runs a supply shop called the Red Kite. He will have information on how to acquire passage to the next layer. However, when they finally get to Tantalin, and they're able to get to that, find his shop, they're going to find that he's currently dead. So his like body is going to be murdered. He's going to be like flayed. His whole shop is going to be like shut down because, as it turns out, he was basically found out to be a spy and murdered, which is going to make a lot of people, if they go asking for this guy, it's going to make a lot of people very nervous because, they are his contacts. So they're going to know these pieces are spies, and it's not going to be too good for them. And it's going to be one of those like, oh shit moments, because they're like, okay, no problem. We got a plan. We go to this city. We find this guy. He'll tell us how to get to the next layer. And then they're going to get to there and be like, oh God, our contact's dead. How do we get to the next layer? Oh God, oh God, oh God. And then they'll have to fall into those story quest hooks. And then when they find the way to the next layer, they can get back on track. Uh, Here I have, once you pass over into Malbos, you will have a tough time. We don't have any presence here. And our information shows that this plane seems like some sort of prison complex. Unfortunately, we don't know the location of the portal to the next layer. Tread carefully. So they're on their own for that layer. And then the 7th layer of hell, we have some tenuous contacts. Not a member of the Silent Rain, but somebody who owes us a favor. A bearded devil named Vogodoth, a member of something they call the Gravelfoot Brigade. So that was like a little bullet point I made. And then the 8th layer is where Erebus Kale is, and we'll talk later about my plan for that, but there will be some contact in some way that they can try to defeat Mephistopheles and get the divinity he stole from Erebus Kale back. Yeah, we talked about it a lot tonight. We didn't need to do much on stream. I got to share a lot of my maps with you and my plans. But I am excited because I do believe that this Sunday they should finally, for the first time, be getting into Stygia, and that will allow me to start narrowing my focus a bit more about what they're going to do. So I need to touch up this map a bit, move some of these pillars so they're in the middle of these things. Yeah, it should be fun. So anyway, thanks for coming in. If you have any fun ideas for me, make a comment on a YouTube channel. Post down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe. It really helps me out if you like and subscribe, because it helps the metrics on my channel, which YouTube uses to track all that. So especially when I'm starting this channel where I am, every little bit helps. So thank you for doing that. If you haven't yet, please do, and thank you for doing it after this. Post a comment. Let me know, hey, here's what you should do for the Coliseum fight, or hey, I have this really interesting idea for like a random interesting encounter or a combat encounter, or like, hey, how about naming a PC after me? Like, yeah, or an NPC. Let me know your name and I'll name an NPC after you in the game. Really, I want your fun ideas, and I want to incorporate them into what I'm doing. So I think that's good for tonight, guys. I think we're good. Or I'm good for tonight. It is the night before Thanksgiving. I'm excited for tomorrow, Thanksgiving, and Sunday to really dive back into my campaign. So thanks for coming on this ride with me. This has been episode 2 of DM Prep for Beyond Avernus. I am DM Steve. Check us out Sundays, 6 p.m. I'm trying to do the DM Prep Wednesday nights at 8. I'm not sure if it's going to be an every week or an every other week thing, but keep an eye on my channel. Subscribe. Twitch.tv/DMSteve. And catch me for these live chats and interact with me. I really enjoy it. So take it easy. I'll see you guys on Sunday. Till next time.